Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Fronteras at Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. Today we discuss the work of an organization that for over a decade has been working to establish and preserve the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument through advocacy and events that connect our community with the monument and our public lands. Here to share more is Patrick Nolan, Executive Director of Friends of the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Always great to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start off. Could you share with us a little bit about your organization and the history behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So last September, we celebrated 10 years as an organization. And I think really in the beginning, we were that grassroots group that was really working to push the monument designation, right? So making sure we had our faith leaders, our community leaders, our outdoor rec leaders, local elected officials on board, and part of a larger coalition, right? But I think that was sort of where we kind of grew, right? Was from the grassroots, from that community that really fought so hard to protect this place. And in the years since, right, we've fought to protect the monument designation during the Trump administration. Now, currently, we've really transitioned into policy advocacy work as well as programming, getting kids outside and having a good time on public lands.
Let's start off with policy work you're doing. What are some of the top issues that you are focusing on when it comes to policymaking?
Well, viewers to your program will be familiar. I've been talking about the resource management plan for several years now. Last year, the funding was finally allocated to start that process, right? And so our local BLM office has begun that process. And where they're at right now is sort of a government to government talk, right? So they're getting local tribes involved, county officials, city officials, state officials, and really sort of talking about what this plan is going to look like. Any day now, right, depending on when this airs, we should have a sense of when we will have the chance for public comment. And this is where the public can weigh in on this really critical document.
Now, when you're talking about public comment, can you give us an idea about what folks are going to have the opportunity and how they can weigh in?
Several ways. So our local office is talking about doing things virtually, right, which I think makes a lot of sense in this day and age. Holding several community meetings throughout the county, right, so all the way up to Hatch, down to Chaparral, Sunland Park area. And then all that information should get released. And then there will also be, you can email, there'll be a website set up to email comments around how you think this place should be managed, right? This is ultimately the last step to protecting this national monument in an official way, right? We're always protecting it, but really from a government standpoint of how this place is managed, is a really critical step.
How do you connect with communities in order to have them know that they have the option to be an advocate for these public lands that are located in their communities? How do you connect with diverse communities who may not have access to, say, updated news and information? Perhaps maybe it's online or other barriers that may exist.
I think you do that several ways. One way that we do it is we build relationships within community, right? So we find those teachers that want to take their students out for either just a hike on a field trip, or really even farther than that, establish an after-school outdoor club. We have tons of hiking opportunities for the public, right, where anybody can just go and hike, and we provide educational material and really talk about the history and the geology of the place, and provides a really unique opportunity. And that's how we build that relationship, right? This is like, seeing it from afar is one thing, right? But getting out there on the land and really experiencing, like, the Chihuahuan Desert is so unique and different from anywhere else in the world, right? And it's also one of those places that you got to see up close, right? You can't see it from afar. You can see our mountains, right? And our mountains are great. But if you want to see those canyons and those amazing cactus and native plants that we have here, you got to get up close.
This is a big national monument that we have in our area. Can you kind of give us an understanding of just how expansive it is and the areas that it covers?
Essentially, it surrounds the city of Las Cruces, right? So we all know the organs, right? The backdrop to our city and to thousands of pictures every day. You got the Doñanas, which are just north of here, north of Las Cruces. When you're heading up to Albuquerque, you'll see those on your right-hand side. And that's really an outdoor rec paradise, right? They got a great trail system there. So you got a lot of OHV usage there, mountain bike usage there, and then just folks hiking or doing trail running. On the other side of the freeway there, you got the Robledos and the Sierra de las Uvas, which go all the way up to Hatch. And then on your way down to El Paso, you got a lot of the Oregons still left, basically until the Anthony Gap there, and then you got the Potrillos there.
This is a pretty expansive area, as I mentioned, but keeping up with conservation in that area, what are some of the challenges with that?
Resources. I mean, it's good. So a monument designation is great in that it brings resources, right? Without that designation, we don't have a monument manager. We don't have an archaeologist. We don't have a paleontologist. We don't have a biologist. We don't have an outdoor recreation planner, right? So a monument designation brings those resources, but we always need more. And that's sort of one thing that we're really working to do, is really highlight the importance of these BLM managed lands. Came across a statistic, it's like 1 in 6 people live within 100 miles of BLM managed lands. I mean, it's mammoth. Like the amount of land that they manage, particularly here in the West, is expansive and huge, right? And it impacts everybody's lives in very real and important ways.
So many ways that it impacts our lives, but also making sure that people are aware of the opportunities out there. I know I brought this up before in our conversations, but there may be folks who have grown up here in the area that have not yet experienced the monument and the trails and everything else that is possible with outdoor recreation. You at your organization have developed a curriculum to help teach folks in the area, students in school. Can you share with us a little bit about that effort?
Yeah, we developed the public lands curriculum, a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, available on our website for anybody to download and use, right? And it includes, if you're everywhere from a kindergarten to high school, right? There are lesson plans that line up with state standards here in the state of New Mexico. And it really sort of leans into this idea around our outdoor spaces being classrooms and being places that we can learn and grow and I think it's really critical to start with the youth, right? The conservation movement is older would be a better way to put that, right? And so we need to develop new folks and new voices in there, and I think that starts with as young as we can get them out there on the land, build that relationship, because that's when we talk to folks about why it's important to them. Almost universally they talk about, I went camping with my parents, or I went on a hike with my grandma or my aunt or my uncle, but it's always about something they did when they were young. And so our work really right now is to create those opportunities while folks are young and able and eager to get out there, to create those opportunities and knock down those barriers that exist.
Now, upcoming events, every year you work with the city of Las Cruces to develop events that connect the city with the monument. What are some of the things you have in store for the upcoming year with that?
In September, it's our annual Monuments to Main Street festival party, right? It's a month-long celebration.
And this seems to grow every year.
It does grow every year, and it evolves, right? Our public lands are changing, and the things that we can do and how we understand and sort of how we experience our public lands is always changing, right? And I like to think that Monuments to Main Street really reflects that, right? So you can book a flight over the monuments. You can just join on a hike, right? You can go to a talk at a local brewery and learn about the history and the plant life, whatever it may be, right? There's so many different ways to engage in our public lands. And I think Monuments to Main Street sort of reflects that, in that in that month alone, there's just a ton of things you can do.
Now, with the monument, there's so many recreational opportunities. You talked about a number of them when you were describing the monument, but can you kind of just give us a rundown of just so many things people can do? And this is stuff that is fairly affordable to do.
Yes, and I think that's important, right? The outdoor community can be a little, at times, sort of elitist, for lack of a better word, right? And closed off to some like newer folks coming out on our public lands. But you don't need Patagonia to go on a hike at Dripping Springs, right? You can do it in your sandals. I don't recommend it. We've had people do it. I don't recommend it. But if you want to, you can do it, right? For the record, Friends of Oregon Mountains, wear some sturdy shoes while you're out there hiking. So you can go hiking. One thing that we've really seen grow in popularity is mountain biking. We have tons of trails throughout the monument, even outside of the monument, that connect all these different 4 parts of the monument. The monumental loop, right? So it connects all 4 parts. It's a 200+ mile bike route. It integrates county roads, official sort of scenic trails, unofficial trails, unofficial roads or county roads, right? But it connects you all the way. And so we had 150 people come from all over the country last year to do that. We're going to do that again in October. That's Dangerbird, so registration will open for that pretty soon. And to go along with that, there's a bike pack summit where we're really, bike packing is sort of the new thing, right? Instead of, well, it's newish. Put all your gear you need on a bike and hit the trail, and you'll be good to go. And then you can stop in Hatch, you can stop down in Valo for a burrito or a snack. Stop at the local, well, not Pickwick anymore, Circle K, grab a snack, and support those local economies while you're doing it.
This is something that's grown, it seems like locally here in recent years. We've seen people take advantage of the monument in that way, in these bike packing trips, or traveling throughout our region on this. Can you kind of explain just kind of how this is evolving and how more people are really falling in love with just getting outdoors and experiencing them in so many ways? Is this something that perhaps the pandemic may have helped?
Yes, I think the pandemic changed so many things about public lands, right? You remember in those early days, we couldn't do anything, right? But one thing we could do was go outside. And so we saw visitation and to places in our monument that were not generally visited, right? They're not as well known. So we really expanded our knowledge of the monument. And I think one piece of that was mountain biking, right? Get on a bike, get out of your house. And I think that popularity has continued to grow. The state, the Office of Outdoor Recreation has really leaned into this as a real key economic driver for the state of New Mexico. So it's really interesting to see, and I think the community that we have here in Las Cruces is really community focused, right, and community minded, and making sure that we are opening up these opportunities. One interesting thing, of the 150 people that did it, it was almost split evenly. Half were from the state of New Mexico, the other half were from outside of New Mexico. And I thought that was really interesting.
So you see this event, the Dangerbird is what it's called, the bike ride, that takes folks around the monument. This is an event that seems to be growing, is what you're saying?
Yes, we are limited in, excuse me, in how many people can ride, right? Because we want to limit the impact on the land. But one way we can grow is our backpack summit. Like, how can we get more folks to come there to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, leave no trace, all of these important things when we're out there on the land to think about too, right? So how can we grow that? And you don't have to come just in October, right? You can come in December. You can come, I don't know, June, July, I would go somewhere else. It's a little hot. But all the other months, you can come anytime.
Yeah. How important are volunteers to your organization and your outreach?
I think volunteers are critical in a number of ways. Sometimes it's just like a cleanup, right? Get out there to an area where there's been illegal dumping, repair a fence, do some trail work. And that helps build that community, and that helps build that connection. Our docent hikes are all volunteers from the community, right? So these are retired professors, retired accountants, retired of all sorts of folks that really just want to get out there and lead hikes and work with the public, right? And so, I don't know, we've probably had 500, it's a relatively new program, 500 to 1,000 folks that have gone on these guided hikes. Wow. And that's you got to create that community, right, and create those opportunities.
Creating those opportunities have also led to economic development opportunities for folks in our area. Can you kind of share with us how people have been able to capitalize on the National Monument to grow their businesses? I
think the one that we always look to is Oregon Mountain Outfitters, right? they've really used this beautiful backdrop that we have as a state or as a community to really build their brand, right? I think we're seeing folks come in for guided hikes, for guided mountain bike adventures. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done around our outdoor recreation economy. Secretary Deb Haaland was here a few weeks back, and so her, along with Congressman Gabe Vasquez, organized a roundtable with folks, right? And I think what really came out of that conversation was we need more resources put into our BLM offices, and also we need to create some infrastructure around how we develop the outdoor recreation economy.
Let's talk about that infrastructure a little bit. What are some things that you think can be easily developed and lead to more outdoor recreation jobs and development?
I think that's an excellent question. Honestly, sometimes it's as simple as a map, better trail markers, right? When you go to, we have the White Sands National Park, right? And when you go there, that experience versus OMDP is quite different, right? You have a check-in place, you get a map, you have your signs and your all of these things that you would need to get out there safely. And I don't think we necessarily need all that in OMDP, right? Because it's a different experience, right? But some of that I think would be great, right? And how do we get public information out there to the public around good trails and good hikes? I think that's really one piece that we're missing, and I think that's something we can improve on, certainly.
Well, there's certainly some excitement around it, and data that shows that the outdoor recreation economy is growing in New Mexico. According to Headwaters Economics, they put a study together on how the outdoor recreation community contributes to the state's economy. In 2021, it attributed to 2.1% of the state's GDP. That came from outdoor recreation, over 28,000 jobs, over $1.1 billion in wages. Some data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis that Headwaters Economics was using on that. Where do you see the potential with this? Where's our outdoor recreation community? Where could it possibly be in 10 years?
Gosh, in 10 years, I think that in 10 years, we could see, I don't know, like double. I think it's hard to sort of put a figure on it, but I can see it being more developed and more robust. I can see it being more infrastructure, right? So when you fly into El Paso, or maybe by then we'll be flying into Las Cruces Airport, right? Which is right by the monument. You'll be handed a guide that says, hey, these are the activities you can do. I think in 10 years, if we don't have that information like readily available and handy for folks, then we're doing something wrong. I think that's certainly somewhere we should strive to be.
Now, you mentioned the outdoor recreation office here in the state of New Mexico. How big of an impact has that had to have an office solely focused on developing the outdoor recreation community here?
I think it's been critical. We work with them on a number of projects. They're helping fund a project to make a trail at Dripping Springs area, handicap accessible. But they also just create awareness, and they beat that drum for southern New Mexico. Well, for the whole state of New Mexico, right? But I think specifically southern New Mexico is really interesting because of the opportunities we have. And I feel like there's always that push and pull between folks not caring about the southern part of the state, right? But I think this office has really reflected and understands the value that outdoor recreation can bring to southern New Mexico, a place that needs development. We need economic opportunities, right? And I think they see that outdoor recreation cannot solve everything, right? But it can be a really key driver.
There's so much concern around our changing climate and how that may impact our region and, of course, our public lands. What are some of your thoughts on some things that your organization is paying attention to that may focus on adapting to our changing climate?
I think one thing that I think we often forget about when we protect these places, right, is how are they managed and how do we restore them, right? And I think a renewed focus on restoration, like where have we lost grasslands that potentially we can sort of bring back to life, right? Where are we seeing water sources that we can support and protect, right? And this is really in the resource management plan. A lot of these answers will be, lots of these questions will be answered, right? I really think we need to focus on the management of these places And also, quite honestly, we do know that protection of public lands helps in carbon mitigation efforts. So it's never a bad idea to protect places, right? As we're moving towards this 30 by 30 goal, America the Beautiful, BLM is going to play a key role in that, just by the sheer amount of land that they manage, right? If we're going to reach this goal, the BLM is going to have to play a really critical role in those efforts.
You brought up demographics of outdoor stewards that are working to protect public lands in our region, and connecting with the new generation, the generation that is coming up right now. What are some things that your organization continues to work on?
I think we're recognizing that the generation coming up doesn't look like me, right? And so how are we creating opportunities for folks that are from this community that are, or have moved here recently, right, to build that investment, to build that relationship, right? And like I said before, I think really getting folks that have not had these opportunities out there on the land is the most important thing that we can do.
There's been a lot of focus recently as well about paying attention to our mental health and perhaps how nature may help play a role in that.
Yes.
What are some things that you've come across that folks have shared with you on how that being outdoors, being on the public lands, may actually impact their mental well-being?
If I have had so many people just tell me about, like, they need a recharge around, like, and their recharge is to go out camping, right? There's somebody told me recently that it resets your what's your sleep rhythm, your
your sleep rhythm, that your kind of inner
yes.
clock is
yes,
what
your
you're
clock,
saying?
Yes. So going camping resets your clock, right? And so it's things like that, or something like we do know, getting a little sunshine out, right? And I wish I could, people think I hike all the time. I wish I hiked as much as I do. But now I walk my dogs on our city trails. And that, I think, just that time outdoors, we know that helps. And we knew it helped us during COVID, and I think it'll continue to help us moving forward.
Now, there's also a popular spot for a lot of folks in the area, Slot Canyon. Are you involved with any efforts to ensure better access to that?
Absolutely, yes. This is something that we've been working on for a while, right? So in this Slot Canyon, you have every single land management agency sort of meeting in one place, right? And that comes with some complications. A large portion of this land is owned by the MNRD, or specifically state lands, or I'm sorry, state parks. So they own and manage this land, and it's great access to the river, and it also provides great access to the monument, right? Currently, folks got to jump over a fence to get to this Slot Canyon. And it's not like the biggest fence in the world, right? But we don't want to have to do that, right? We want to have free, equitable access to our public lands. And so we have a really unique opportunity to create a new state park on a piece of land that is beautiful. Like, we can do some restoration work on the river. If you go up to Albuquerque and the Rio Bosque there, like, you see what the river looks like there. It doesn't look like that down here, right? So this creates an opportunity for river access and restoration work. It's a really exciting thing that I think hopefully we can get across the finish line at this next legislative session.
All right, Patrick Nolan is Executive Director of Friends of Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks. Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, always a pleasure.
We now bring you the story of a local organization that is using the outdoors in schools to help strengthen natural science literacy for students and adults in our region. Our producer, Christian Valle, brings us the story of the Asombro Institute for Science Education.
The word asombro means wonder in Spanish, and that's really just a perfect description of everything that we do at the Asombro Institute for Science Education. We really try to inspire this sense of wonder about science and this sense of wonder about the natural world, especially, of course, the desert, for all the students we work with, also teachers and also the general public who comes out and visits us as well. You know, we're really working towards increasing science literacy in everyone we work with. And unfortunately, only about 20% of our 8th graders are meeting this kind of basic level of science literacy right now. And every day, our science educators are out there trying to turn this around and really partnering with teachers and school district administrators to provide this really great, informed way of teaching and learning science. And again, based on examples that are right here in our backyard. All students work better and learn better if they're doing hands-on science. And so everything we do at Asombro is all based on hands-on science. We have a lot of different kinds of programs. So we go into classrooms and we work with individual classes of students for about an hour at a time. We also take students on field trips to our outdoor classroom, which is called the Chihuahuan Desert Nature Park. We use the students' own schoolyards so we can get them outside even if they aren't taking a bus trip to come see us. We have a data competition we've been doing for 11 years now called the Desert Data Jam. And we also do teacher workshops and we also do public programs out at our nature park site. The Chihuahuan Desert Nature Park is open 6 days a week from Tuesday through Sunday from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. And so visitors are welcome to come out there. You might see us leading a field trip for students from Monday through Friday, but on other days visitors can come and just hike on their own. We have a self-guided tour booklet, we have interpretive signs, we have picnic areas, all for the public to come and enjoy. For teachers, we have some free activities that they can get online and download and use in their own classrooms. We have information about all the other programs that we can offer to teachers, including teacher workshops that are upcoming. The website is asombro.org. And I'd love to see us reaching every single student all over southern New Mexico so they all get this hands-on, really exciting view of what science is and what we're learning about the desert right here in our backyards. I hope they can also learn a little bit about science literacy in our area and how important it is to train the next generation of scientists, but also just make sure that everybody, regardless of what career they go into, knows a little bit about this desert and can make informed decisions about how we can best protect it.
That's it for this week's program. Remember, you can visit our website, krwg.org, to keep updated with the latest news. I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time.